The fluorescent lights of Meadowbrook Shopping Center cast harsh shadows across the polished floor as 11-year-old Brielle Carter pressed her favorite stuffed elephant against her chest, its soft fabric providing the sensory comfort she desperately needed in the overwhelming environment. The sounds crashed over her in waves, chattering voices, clicking heels, the distant hum of escalators, and the tinny echo of holiday music from overhead speakers. She rocked slightly on her heels, a self-soothing motion that helped her navigate the sensory storm of the busy Saturday afternoon. "Brielle, honey, stay close while Mama tries on these shoes," called Lieutenant Colonel Dana Carter from inside the Nordstrom fitting area, her voice carrying the gentle authority of someone accustomed to command, but never harsh with her daughter. Dana had learned over the years to speak in calm, measured tones when Brielle's autism made the world feel too loud, too bright, too much. Shoppers moved around them in the typical weekend rush. Families with strollers, teenagers clustered around phone screens, elderly couples walking arm in arm. The normalcy of it all would be shattered in moments. But for now, Brielle found her rhythm, flapping her hands in small, discreet movements while keeping her elephant close. She had named him Officer Trunk because of the way his fabric felt like the uniform her mother wore to work. And today, he was her anchor in the chaos. From behind came the heavy footsteps that would change everything. Officer Marcus Webb and his partner Officer Jenny Mitchell approached with the confidence of authority, their radio chatter cutting through the ambient noise of the mall. Webb, a 15-year veteran with a reputation for aggressive enforcement, had already made up his mind about what he was seeing. Mitchell, newer to the force, but eager to prove herself, followed his lead without question. "Excuse me, young lady." Webb's voice boomed across the space, causing several shoppers to turn and stare. "We need to have a word with you." Brielle's world tilted. The elephant slipped slightly in her grip as she turned, her dark eyes wide with confusion and the beginning of panic. She had done nothing wrong, had barely left her mother's side, had touched nothing except the comfort items in her specially designed backpack. But the officer's presence triggered every anxiety response her young nervous system had developed over 11 years of navigating a world that often felt hostile to her differences. "Ma'am, we have reports of shoplifting," Mitchell announced, her hand resting on her radio as if preparing for resistance. "We're going to need to search your belongings." The crowd began to gather, smartphones emerging like digital witnesses to what was about to unfold. A teenage girl with bright pink hair started recording, her TikTok already generating views before the situation had fully developed. An elderly man shook his head in disapproval, though whether at Brielle or the officers remained unclear. A mother pulled her own children closer, whispering warnings about what happens to people who take things that don't belong to them. Brielle's stimming increased, her hands flapping more rapidly as the sensory overload threatened to overwhelm her coping mechanisms. "Officer Trunk! Officer Trunk!" she whispered to her elephant, her voice barely audible over the growing murmur of the crowd. The repetition of his name was both a plea and a prayer, a desperate attempt to ground herself in something familiar and safe. "What's the nature of the complaint?" Dana's voice cut through the noise as she emerged from the fitting room, still holding a pair of shoes she had been considering. Her trained eye immediately assessed the situation: 2 officers, 1 clearly agitated child, and a growing crowd of onlookers. Her mother's instincts and her professional experience kicked in simultaneously, recognizing danger from multiple angles. Webb barely glanced at Dana, his focus entirely on Brielle. "Store security reported this individual concealing merchandise. We need to conduct a search." His tone brooked no argument, the authority of the badge backing every word. Standard procedure for suspected theft. "She's 11 years old and autistic," Dana said firmly, setting down the shoes and moving protectively toward her daughter. "She doesn't understand what's happening. Can you please explain exactly what you think she took? Mitchell consulted her notepad with theatrical precision. Lip gloss from the cosmetics counter. High-end product. $47 retail value. She looked up with the satisfaction of someone presenting irrefutable evidence. Security cameras captured the incident. Dana reached into her purse and produced a receipt. The paper still crisp from the transaction 30 minutes earlier. Here's the receipt for the lip gloss I bought for my sister's birthday. Brielle hasn't left my side since we arrived. She held it out, expecting the misunderstanding to dissolve with the presentation of proof. But Webb barely glanced at the receipt before shaking his head. Could be fake. Could be for something else. We still need to search her bags and pockets. His dismissal was swift and absolute, the kind of response that brooked no further discussion. Step aside, ma'am. This is police business. The crowd pressed closer, phones held high to capture every moment of the unfolding drama. The teenage TikToker had already started a live stream, her commentary providing real-time analysis of the situation. Oh my God, you guys! They're about to search this little girl. This is literally happening right now at Meadowbrook Mall. Brielle's meltdown began as a low, keening sound, barely audible, but unmistakably distressed. Her hands moved faster, her elephant pressed tighter against her chest, her body beginning the familiar pattern of self-regulation that often preceded a full sensory shutdown. Dana recognized the signs immediately and moved closer to her daughter, but Webb stepped between them with authoritative finality. Ma'am, step back. We need space to conduct our investigation. His hand moved to his belt, not to his weapon, but to his handcuffs, a gesture both threatening and procedural. Any interference will result in additional charges. The search began with Brielle's backpack, specifically designed with sensory-friendly materials and compartments for her therapy items. Webb's hands were neither gentle nor careful as he opened each section, spilling contents onto the mall floor. Weighted lap pads, noise-canceling headphones, textured fidget toys, and carefully organized snacks scattered across the polished surface like evidence of a crime never committed. What is all this stuff? Mitchell asked, holding up a chewy necklace designed to provide oral sensory input. Her tone suggested she had discovered drug paraphernalia rather than therapeutic tools. Some kind of drug equipment. Those are sensory tools for autism, Dana explained, her voice tight with controlled fury. They help her regulate her nervous system in overwhelming environments. She watched helplessly as years of carefully selected therapeutic items were treated like evidence in a criminal investigation. Webb's search grew more aggressive, his frustration evident as he found no contraband among Brielle's belongings. The lip gloss was nowhere to be found, because it had never been taken. But his determination to justify the stop had moved beyond logic into something darker and more troubling. Could be hidden in her clothing, he declared with grim satisfaction. We'll need to conduct a more thorough search. The words hit Dana like physical blows. You cannot strip search a child in public. This is completely inappropriate and illegal. Her voice carried the authority of someone who knew the law intimately. But Webb seemed unmoved by legal concerns. Public safety takes precedence, he replied, guiding Brielle toward a service kiosk that would provide minimal privacy from the growing crowd. This is standard procedure for suspected concealment. Brielle's meltdown escalated as she was moved away from her mother and toward the unfamiliar space behind the kiosk. Her keening became louder, her stimming more pronounced, her grip on Officer Trunk desperate and panicked. The crowd's murmur grew louder, some expressing outrage at the treatment of a child, others defending the officer's right to investigate suspected crimes. The teenage TikToker provided running commentary for her expanding audience. This is insane. Guys, they're literally about to strip search this little black girl at the mall. The mom is trying to show them receipts, but they won't listen. This is going viral for sure. Behind the kiosk. Away from Dana's protective presence. Webb's commands became sharper and more intimidating. Remove your jacket. Empty your pockets. Lift your shirt. Each instruction was delivered with military precision, as if Brielle were a seasoned criminal, rather than a frightened child, having a neurological response to overwhelming stimuli. Brielle's attempts to comply were hampered by her increasing distress. Her motor planning, already compromised by autism, completely shut down under the stress of the situation. When she couldn't follow the rapid-fire instructions, Webb interpreted her confusion as defiance. Are you refusing to cooperate? That's obstruction of justice. Mitchell produced handcuffs with ceremonial gravity, the metal catching the harsh fluorescent lights. Hands behind your back, she ordered, approaching Brielle with the authority of the law. You're under arrest for shoplifting and resisting arrest. The click of the handcuffs around Brielle's small wrists was audible even over the crowd noise, a sound that would echo in Dana's memory for years to come. Her daughter's meltdown reached full intensity as the metal restraints triggered every sensory aversion she had ever experienced. The crowd's reaction was immediate and divided, some shouting protests at the treatment of a child, others defending the officer's right to maintain order. The TikTok livestream exploded with comments. Viewers from around the world witnessing the arrest of an 11-year-old autistic girl for a crime that had never been committed. The teenage streamer's follower count climbed by thousands as the video was shared across social media platforms, each share carrying the image of Brielle in handcuffs, her elephant fallen to the floor, her face a mask of terror and confusion. But what Webb and Mitchell didn't know, what the crowd couldn't have guessed, was that their every action was being recorded by more than just smartphones and social media streams. Meadowbrook Shopping Center's high-definition security system was capturing every angle of the incident, every inappropriate touch, every violation of protocol, every moment of excessive force applied to a child who posed no threat to anyone. And those cameras fed directly to a central monitoring station that employed off-duty police officers as security supervisors, one of whom recognized Dana Carter immediately, Officer Sarah Chen, working her weekend security shift to supplement her detective's salary, watched the incident unfold with growing horror and reached for her phone to make a call that would change everything. Lieutenant Colonel Carter. Chen's voice was tight with urgency when Dana's phone rang. This is Detective Chen. I'm watching the security feeds from the mall. We have everything recorded in high definition from multiple angles. The footage is already being forwarded to your office. Dana's badge had remained hidden during the initial confrontation, her civilian clothes and protective mother persona masking her true identity. But Chen's call changed the entire dynamic of the situation, revealing layers of authority and accountability that Webb and Mitchell had never considered. Dana Carter wasn't just any concerned parent demanding justice for her child. She was Lieutenant Colonel Dana Carter, Director of Internal Affairs for the State Police, the very department responsible for investigating police misconduct and holding officers accountable for their actions. The revelation hit like a seismic shift in the foundation of the confrontation. Dana's training kicked in as she processed the implications of what was happening. Every protocol violation, every excessive use of force, every moment of the illegal search was being documented by multiple sources, creating an ironclad case of police misconduct that would be impossible to deny or cover up. Officers, Dana said, her voice carrying a new authority as she approached Webb and Mitchell with her badge prominently displayed. Lieutenant Colonel Dana Carter, Director of Internal Affairs. You need to remove those handcuffs from my daughter immediately. The color drained from Webb's face as he processed the implications of what he had just done. Arresting the child of a high-ranking police official was bad enough, but conducting an illegal strip search on the daughter of the person responsible for investigating police corruption was career suicide. Mitchell's hands shook as she fumbled for the handcuff keys, her earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. "Ma'am, we didn't know. I mean, we were just following procedure." Webb's voice trailed off as he realized that no procedure justified what he had done, and no excuse would protect him from the consequences of his actions. But Dana's attention was focused entirely on Brielle, who was still experiencing the full intensity of her meltdown despite the removal of the handcuffs. "Sweetheart, it's okay. Mama's here. You're safe now." Her voice was gentle and soothing, designed to penetrate the sensory chaos of her daughter's overwhelmed nervous system. The crowd had grown to include mall security, store managers, and curious shoppers drawn by the commotion. The teenage TikToker was now live streaming to an audience of over 50,000 viewers. Her commentary providing real-time analysis of the rapidly changing situation. Wait. The mom is a cop, like a high-ranking cop. Oh my God, these officers are so screwed. But the day's revelations were far from over. Unknown to everyone present, the weekend's events at Meadowbrook Mall were set to culminate in the Center Court's annual charity fashion show, a community event that drew hundreds of local residents and businesses together to support various causes. This year's beneficiary was the Autism Awareness Foundation, a choice that would prove providentially appropriate given the day's events. As Brielle slowly began to calm down with the help of her elephant and her mother's soothing presence, Dana made a series of rapid phone calls that would set the final act of the drama in motion. Her contacts included the mall's general manager, the event coordinator for the fashion show, and several colleagues from internal affairs who could ensure that justice would be swift and public. "Helen, it's Dana Carter. I need you to make room in tonight's fashion show program for a special presentation. It's about police accountability and autism awareness. The footage I'm sending will explain everything." Her voice was calm and professional, but those who knew her well could hear the steel beneath the diplomacy. The charity fashion show was scheduled to begin in just 30 minutes, with a crowd of over 800 community members already gathering in the center court. The timing was perfect for maximum impact, ensuring that the officers' misconduct would be exposed to the very community they had sworn to serve and protect. Webb and Mitchell, still reeling from the revelation of Dana's identity, tried to salvage the situation with increasingly desperate explanations. "Lieutenant Colonel, we were acting on credible information. Store security reported suspicious activity. We followed standard search protocols." "Standard protocols do not include strip-searching children in public," Dana replied with icy precision. "Standard protocols do not include ignoring receipts that prove innocence. Standard protocols do not include handcuffing 11-year-old girls having autism meltdowns." The mall's general manager arrived with a team of corporate executives, their faces grim with the knowledge that their security footage had captured every moment of the incident. Helen Rodriguez, the fashion show coordinator, was setting up equipment to display the security footage on the massive LED screens that normally showed fashion photography and sponsor advertisements. As the crowd in the center court grew, word of the incident spread through social media and text messages. The TikTok livestream had been shared thousands of times, creating a viral awareness of what had happened that ensured the fashion show audience would arrive with expectations of justice and accountability. Brielle, still clutching Officer Trunk and staying close to her mother, began to understand that something important was about to happen. Her sensory system was slowly returning to baseline, helped by the familiar routine of deep breathing exercises that Dana guided her through. "Mama, are the bad officers going to jail?" she asked with the direct honesty that autism often brings to complex situations. "Yes, sweetheart. They're going to face consequences for what they did to you," Dana replied, her voice carrying the weight of professional certainty. "And we're going to make sure it never happens to another child." The fashion show began with its usual fanfare. Local models strutting down the runway, wearing donated clothing from various boutiques. But the audience was restless, aware that something more significant was coming. The buzz of conversation carried undertones of anticipation and anger, as social media had already informed many attendees about the afternoon's events. Helen Rodriguez took the microphone during a scheduled intermission, her voice carrying clearly through the center court sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with tonight's show, we need to address an incident that occurred here this afternoon. What you're about to see is security footage from our mall's cameras, and I want to warn you that the content is disturbing. The massive LED screens flickered to life, displaying high-definition footage from multiple angles of the afternoon's events. The audience watched in stunned silence as Webb and Mitchell approached Brielle, ignored Dana's receipts, conducted an illegal search, and ultimately handcuffed a terrified autistic child for a crime that had never been committed. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. Gasps of outrage filled the air, followed by angry murmurs and calls for justice. Parents pulled their own children closer, imaging how they would feel if their child had been subjected to such treatment. The footage was damning in its clarity, showing every protocol violation and every moment of excessive force with documentary precision. Dana took the microphone next, her presence commanding immediate attention from the crowd. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Dana Carter, and I serve as Director of Internal Affairs for the State Police. The child you just saw being abused is my 11-year-old daughter Brielle, who has autism and poses no threat to anyone. The crowd's attention was absolute as Dana continued. What you witnessed today represents everything that is wrong with policing in our community. These officers ignored evidence, violated procedures, and traumatized a disabled child for social media attention and personal gratification. Webb and Mitchell, who had been trying to blend into the crowd, suddenly found themselves surrounded by angry community members and mall security. Their attempts to leave quietly were blocked by citizens who recognized them from the footage and demanded answers for their actions. Officers Webb and Mitchell. Dana's voice carried clearly through the sound system. You are under arrest for felony child abuse, civil rights violations, and official misconduct. You have the right to remain silent, though you showed no such consideration for my daughter's rights. The arrests were carried out by state police officers who had arrived during the fashion show, their presence ensuring that justice would be swift and visible to the entire community. Webb and Mitchell were led away in handcuffs, experiencing for themselves the humiliation and powerlessness they had inflicted on an innocent child. But the evening's events were far from over. The community's response to the footage and Dana's revelation sparked immediate action from local leaders, business owners, and advocacy groups. A spontaneous fundraising effort began right there in the center court, with community members pledging money and resources to create lasting change. The mall's ownership group, recognizing both a moral imperative and a public relations opportunity, announced plans for a comprehensive renovation that would create the first sensory-friendly shopping environment in the state. The project would be called Brielle's Haven, a dedicated space where autistic individuals and their families could shop, dine, and socialize in an environment designed specifically for their needs. The Homeowners Association, initially defensive about their members' role in reporting the supposed shoplifting, quickly shifted to supporting the new initiative. Their financial backing would ensure that Brielle's Haven became a model for inclusive design and accessibility that other communities could replicate. Local news crews arrived as word of the events spread beyond social media into traditional journalism. The story of police misconduct, autism advocacy, and community justice resonated with audiences across the state and beyond. Brielle's story became a catalyst for broader conversations about disability rights, police accountability, and the protection of vulnerable populations. As the evening wound down, Brielle sat with her mother and Officer Trunk in the quiet space that would eventually become part of Brielle's haven. The overwhelming events of the day had exhausted her sensory system, but she was beginning to understand that something important had happened, something that would help other children like her. "Mama, will other kids not get hurt by bad officers now?" she asked, her direct question cutting to the heart of the day's significance. "That's what we're working towards, sweetheart," Dana replied, holding her daughter close and marveling at her resilience. "What happened to you today was wrong, but your courage in surviving it is going to protect other children." The legal proceedings that followed moved with unprecedented speed, driven by the undeniable evidence of the security footage and the public attention generated by social media coverage. Webb and Mitchell faced federal civil rights charges, in addition to state felony counts. Their careers and reputations destroyed by their own actions, captured in high definition. The community support for Brielle and other autistic individuals continued to grow in the weeks and months that followed. Brielle's Haven became a reality, featuring sensory-friendly lighting, sound dampening, tactile exploration areas, and trained staff who understood autism and other neurological differences. The space included a memorial wall dedicated to children who had faced discrimination and abuse, with Brielle's photo prominently displayed alongside others who had shown courage in the face of injustice. But it wasn't just a memorial. It was a promise that the community would do better, would be more inclusive, would protect its most vulnerable members. Officer Trunk found a place of honor in the memorial display, his soft fabric and patient presence representing the comfort items that help autistic individuals navigate an overwhelming world. Visitors could touch him and understand a little more about the sensory needs that make autism both a challenge and a unique way of experiencing life. The TikTok video that had captured the initial confrontation became a powerful tool for autism awareness and police reform advocacy. The teenage creator, initially just seeking viral content, found herself transformed into an activist for disability rights and police accountability. Her platform grew to reach millions of viewers who learned about autism, civil rights, and the importance of speaking up against injustice. Dana's role in internal affairs took on new significance as she became a national advocate for police reform and disability rights. Her experience as both a law enforcement official and the mother of an autistic child gave her unique credibility in pushing for training programs that would prevent future incidents like the one her daughter had endured. The ripple effects of that Saturday afternoon at Meadowbrook Mall continued to spread, creating lasting change in how police interact with disabled individuals, how communities support their most vulnerable members, and how justice can emerge from even the darkest moments of human failing. Brielle continued to visit the mall, now transformed into a welcoming space where her stimming and sensory needs were understood and accommodated. She became an unofficial ambassador for autism awareness, her presence reminding everyone who saw her that different doesn't mean less than, and that every child deserves protection, dignity, and respect. The badge behind the badge had revealed itself that day, showing that true authority comes not from the power to harm and intimidate, but from the commitment to protect and serve, especially those who cannot protect themselves. Dana Carter's badge represented justice, accountability, and the fierce love of a mother who would move heaven and earth to ensure her child's safety and dignity. And in the end, that love had moved a community, transformed a shopping center, ended 2 careers built on abuse of power, and created a haven where every child, regardless of their neurological differences, could feel safe, accepted, and valued. Officer Trunk, still soft and comforting in Brielle's arms, had witnessed it all, a faithful companion through trauma and triumph, fear and justice, darkness and the dawn of something better. The story of that Saturday afternoon would be told and retold, shared in training academies and community centers, autism support groups, and civil rights organizations. It became a testament to the power of truth, the importance of accountability, and the difference one person can make when they refuse to let injustice go unchallenged. But perhaps most importantly, it became Brielle's story, a narrative of survival and strength that would follow her throughout her life, reminding her that she had faced the worst the world could offer and emerged not just intact, but victorious. Her courage, displayed in the simple act of existing authentically in a world that often doesn't understand autism, had created ripples of change that would protect countless other children for generations to come. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the day's sensory input finally settled and Officer Trunk provided his familiar comfort, Brielle understood that she was more than just different. She was powerful, protected, and part of a community that had chosen to stand with her against injustice. And that knowledge, more than any badge or authority, would carry her forward into whatever challenges the future might hold. The badge behind the badge had been revealed, and justice had prevailed, not through violence or intimidation, but through truth, community, and the unwavering love of a mother who wore her own badge with honor and used its authority to protect not just her own child, but all the children who needed someone to stand up for them. In the end, that was what real policing looked like: service, protection, and justice for all, especially the most vulnerable among us.